Today I'll be using M watercolor. All of the colors are listed here for you. I'll primarily be using a mop brush and a dagger brush. You'll also need a glass jar or something circular to make a circular mark for the moon. I'm painting on the top of the jar with some yellow ochre, and I'm going to use this jar as a stamp. So if you just put a little bit of paint around the edges, then you can press the jar down onto your surface to get a round shape. This will be the outline of our moon. We're going to go ahead and start filling in the moon with the paint that's already there and whatever's left on my brush. I'm going to go ahead and pick up some water and blend that out so that the entire circle of the moon is wet. Once that's completely wet, I'm going to start adding in some more colors. The colors I'm using here are Quinacridone Rose and Mineral Violet to give it some texture and some depth and make it look like it's glowing. At this stage, your moon won't really look like it's glowing yet, but once we add in the darks in the second stage, then it will really be vibrant. While painting your moon, you'll want to keep in mind that you want to keep your tones very soft and light, but we also want to have some darkness around the edges and a few areas of very intense color, especially yellow, will help give it the feeling that it's glowing. So this is still the yellow ochre here, but I'm about to drop in some azo yellow. And the azo yellow will be the area that really helps provide the glow. If you have an area that's very saturated and intense that gently fades out into soft edges, this will also really help give this effect. Now you can see that I have the quinacridone rose set in, and this really blooms so big in the wet area of this painting. So I wiped out the pigment out of my brush and slightly dried it. And then I'm just running my damp brush along the edges of the quinacridone rose so that it softens it up and we don't have any hard edges. If you feel like you got an area too dark, you can simply take a paper towel and gently touch it so that it picks up that color. You can also just use your brush and lightly run your brush over it to pick up whatever excess color there is. That works really well. That'll give a more gentle effect. But if you have a lot of color, then you can use a paper towel because that will pick it up a little easier. Now I'm starting in with some of the mineral violet. Now you will notice that if you mix your mineral violet with your yellow ochre, you're going to get a slightly more brown color. I don't mind it for this one. I've painted a few of these and I've used different colors. Sometimes I'll use dioxazine purple, and that will give a really nice, pretty, vibrant purple color within your moon, which is gorgeous. So it just depends upon what you like. Sometimes I like the more muted look, which is what I have here. So you can just play with the colors you have on your palette. You definitely don't need the same colors that I have. And sadly, my mineral violet paint seems to, I don't know, it's getting a little older and crunchy. I don't know how else to describe it. It started to dry in the tube, so I ended up getting these little spots that I'm having to go back and pick up, but hopefully you don't have that problem when you paint. So once you finish your moon, this looks really good. You can see that we have like a lighter area in the center. You want to keep that area light. You want to let this completely dry after you get all of those colors in. Do not go in with this next step as you see me using the mop. Don't do this until your painting is completely dry. It really needs to dry. Otherwise, you're going to have a mess. So now that the moon is completely dried, I'm coming back in with wetting the surface around the moon, and I also want to go over the edge of the moon very gently and lightly with my brush just a little bit. So it's okay to have some overlap, with the water because the pigment will look a lot softer. You won't get a hard edge. If you don't go over the edge of your moon, you will get a hard edge, or you might get like a little white line along the side, which you really don't want. And actually, I didn't quite get close enough in my first wipe of paint here. So toward the end, I have to go back and soften it. So I would say let your paintbrush fall over that moon, maybe like a quarter inch into the moon all the way around. When you brush on your blue pigment, this is, I can never say the name of it. It's like Anthraquinone blue, but it's just a very, very dark blue. If you don't have this, you could mix some brown with like an ultramarine blue. So, like a burnt sienna with like just a little bit of burnt sienna into your ultramarine blue. That would probably work too. So once the whole surface is wet, I'm just going to keep on darkening around the edges. We want the bottom to have a little bit of darker area than the top, and we wanted to that's going to be like our ground area. And then along the left is where we're going to add some trees. So just keep in mind when you're doing this that when you're painting wet into wet, it will dry a lot lighter than it looks. My little puppy just found her favorite squeaker toy. All right, sadly, I had to take that away so I could keep recording. It's very loud. As you'll notice, after I wet the entire background of this painting, I did slip my brush holder underneath my surface. That's the little blue fish that you saw me slip under there. And what this does is it just lifts the top of my surface a little bit so that there's a slight incline so that all the paint runs down toward the bottom. From here, just go ahead and keep darkening up your edges. You want to have your darkest value at the bottom, and the top looks pretty dark right now, but it's going to dry a lot lighter, and that will be about the value that I want it to be. The bottom, I am going to come back and re-wet it after this dries and make it a little bit darker because we do need to get it a little darker than it is right now. Okay, so this is completely dried, and now I'm going to start by wetting everything from the bottom up to the area that I want to make a little bit darker. You can pre-wet this just with water if you want to. It's best to use a really soft brush so that you don't pick up the pigment that's underneath. And this time, to make the bottom area darker, I'm mixing some burnt umber into my blue. And that's where you kind of see the blue turn a little bit more black. So once I have that in there, I'm going to mix up an even thicker and darker mixture, and we're going to start adding in the trees. And it's okay that the bottom area is wet because actually it will help the bottom, like the base of our tree trunk, to blend in to the bottom area. Coming in with even thicker paint here. If you notice that you have a water line or that you can really see a water line where you made your paper wet, you can take a paper towel and gently blot it, and that will keep you from getting a line at the end of your painting. So now that I have that darker mixture of burnt umber and blue, I'm using the dagger brush. This is one of my favorite brushes. I use this brush so much that if I could only use one brush, this brush would be the brush that I use. You can get so many different shapes with this brush because of the way the bristles are cut. You can get really tiny, fine lines, and you can get really wide lines too, as you're seeing here. One tip when you're doing this part is to actually hold your brush closer to the end. You can see how far away my hand is from the tip of the brush. I'm not holding the brush very close to where the silver area is. I'm holding it at least midway along the brush or even further back. And what this does is that it sort of gives you less control, but it makes your brush strokes look more painterly, and it gives the painting a more fresh look to see that. And it works perfectly for this type of painting because you're going to get these, jagged, wiggly, unpredictable lines for the tree branches. And you're just, for the really tiny thin branches, you're just barely touching the surface of your paper with the tip of your brush and just moving your hand along. Another thing you can do to give these nice spooky looking branches is as you pull your brush along the page, you can gently rotate the brush in your fingers, like just a teeny tiny bit back and forth. And that's going to give you a really nice wobbly line. If you don't feel comfortable going directly in with all of your lines, I'd suggest just doing a quick warm up on a separate sheet of paper and practicing your brush strokes. Good painting always comes down to practicing the basics. I think with all things in life, if you can master the basics of something, then, the world is yours. You can go so far with things. So we put in our brush strokes along the side, and now I'm just kind of fine tuning some last little branches here. And then we're going to pull in a few more branches coming out from the base of the tree and a few more along the side as well. And it's the same process. We just want to pick up that nice thick paint and then just holding, you can see my hand here. I'm holding all the way back at the end of the brush and then just dragging up. And you can see how beautiful that makes the branches. They're just kind of unpredictable and they just have such a beautiful flow to them when you hold the brush all the way at the end. It does take some getting used to. If you've never held your brush this way, definitely practice a little bit. After a while, you'll get to the point where holding your brush this way feels very natural, but certainly when you're learning, holding the brush this far back can feel a bit intimidating. I guess because it almost creates such unpredictability that it feels a little scary, but just try it. And remember, this is only paper. If you don't like how this ends up, toss it in the bin. No one will know. Get a new piece of paper, start over. You're allowed to do that. Okay, we're gonna put in these last few branches over here. And after I do that, I'm just gonna darken up the area across the bottom a little bit. I wanna make sure that I hit the bottom of each of these little trees coming out of the ground. Whenever you're painting trees, plants, foliage, you want to make sure that your trees look connected to the ground. Otherwise, they will not look natural. One way to do that is to even just run a wet brush over that area so that you get a blend from the bottom of the tree into into your ground area. And even on this, you can see that like the back part of my tree does not look as cohesive with the ground, but that's okay because we're going to be painting a ghost there. So I just held up the white gouache. You will need white gouache for this. And we're just gonna start sketching in our little ghost. I didn't wait too long for this to dry. Probably should have waited a little bit longer. So do wait for your background to dry before starting in with this. So I'm going in just with pure gouache. My brush was wet, but I didn't mix much water into the gouache. And I'm gonna make my little upside down V shape for my ghost. And then on each side of the ghost, you wanna bring it down just a little lower each time so it looks like there's ruffles in the bottom of your ghost. And as you do this, it's very likely that your paintbrush is going to pick up some of the paint from the layer below. It's okay if it's getting too dark, you can just rinse your brush out. I actually try to take advantage of having a little bit of the paint mix from the layer below. And as you can see on the right side of my ghost, I just used that extra paint that was on my brush and drew a little bit of a line up the side of my ghost to give it a little definition since my background is light and the top of my ghost is also light. So as you're doing this, you'll just want to make sure that the creases in the ghosts is a little darker and that the top area is a little lighter. So I'm just going to continue filling in the ruffles along the bottom of the ghost and smoothing out the layer. As you paint this in, even though I started with full strength gouache, you may just want to blend the edges of your gouache out. That's going to give it a real transparent look. I've changed to a softer brush right here just so that I can blend things out a little bit. I'm also going to dip back into my dark blue paint just to darken up the creases of the wrinkles of the ghost. Okay, once you finish painting your ghost, it will be time to add eyes to our ghost. And essentially, I am just like painting on a backwards 6. If that helps you paint your ghost eyes, it's really just a backwards 6. Or you could think of it as like a typewriter letter A with the A filled in, if that helps you in painting them. So I am using just some really, really dark paint. It's again just a mixture of the blue and the brown. You could also just use a black out of your palette if you don't feel comfortable with painting the eyes on, and if you feel like you don't have the, motor control to do that, you could also just use a black micron pen, which would also be super easy to paint those to get those put in. All right, and once we have our eyes in, we are done. Look how adorable this is. All right, here comes the best part that everyone loves because it's so satisfying. Just peeling the tape off the edges. So this painting is approximately 4 inches by 6 inches. And if you paint this, this would be the perfect size to put on a greeting card for Halloween or for any other occasion that you like having ghosts. Thank you so much for painting along with me or for just watching this video. Um, it really goes a long way in supporting my channel. And if you enjoyed this, please go ahead and hit the like button. That also helps. And if you really, really enjoyed this, please leave a comment below. Thanks again and happy painting.